Well, I think we should start. It's a little after 2. Are we all set, Katie? Looks like it. Welcome to the permanent commission. We're all set?
Yes, you are live streaming and good to go.
Good to go. Great, great. Well, great to see everyone again today. This is the subcommittee number 1 of the Permanent Commission on the Status of Racial, Indigenous, and Maine Tribal Populations. A continuation of our meeting from yesterday, in which we're going through the bills that we initially decided we would continue to assess for their impact on racial disparities, positive impact on racial disparities, moving us towards more racial equity and justice. So I appreciate everyone getting back on into a meeting today and all of the time that you have given towards this process. It's been quite amazing. I thank you for your commitment. We'll do some quick introductions for those who may be watching, and I'll start and then hand it off to the Vice Chief. I am Rachel Talbot Ross. I represent House District 40, which is part of Portland, and I'm co-chair of this subcommittee. Vice Chief?
Yes, Daryl Newell, I'm Vice Chief of the Passamaquoddies in Indian Township. Good to be among you folks.
We're a pretty shy group. I'm State Representative Drew Gatine. I represent part of the city of Westbrook in the Maine House. I'm currently the House Chair of the Appropriations and Financial Affairs Committee. It's good to see you all. Representative McDonald.
Hello, I'm Representative Genevieve McDonald. I represent House District 134, the offshore islands of Penobscot Bay.
And since we're neighboring districts, I'll go next. I'm Sarah Pebworth. I represent House District 133, which is the Blue Hill Peninsula, currently serving on the State and Local Government Committee.
And I'm Jay McCrite, representing House District 51, Harpswell, West Bath, and part of Brunswick. Senator Bellows.
I'm Senator Shanna Bellows. I represent Senate District 14, which is 11 towns in Southern Kennebec County, and I chair the Labor and Housing Committee and serve on Judiciary.
Thank you all. So we have a hard stop at 4. We'll just do this quite informally so that we can get through as much as possible. So just all jump in.
It's 3 o'clock.
Yeah, it's 3 o'clock. Thank you. I'm going to ask, so just very quickly, so we know what we're doing here today, the bills we're concentrating on. The bills we've still not had any discussion on are 759, 1376, 1417, 1453, and 1492. They have not had any discussion. So we're going to start with that list, and if we can get through it, then we'll go to the list that we had for possible amendments, just to give it some voice, and then the parking lot bills, which what we do not get done today, we'll have to do by email this evening. Ultimately, what we want to be able to do is present a list along with a brief assessment to the full committee for our final list tomorrow. Full committee meets at 11:30. So I thought as a way to start, Jay, you sent an email on 1417. We might as well start with something that's already been reviewed, if that's okay with the group.
It's okay with me. This is my bill about Head Start, to increase access to Head Start for opioid affected and other at-risk families. And I wasn't sure I'd be here this afternoon, so I made a pitch by email. My feeling is that it does address the population and the needs we're talking about, because it's a high quality early education program that serves not just children, but their entire family, toward empowering families, addressing, my favorite is you are your child's first and best teacher. A lot of the program is home-based, very respectful to families of being in their home environment. Deals with nutrition, healthcare screenings are done, at least in some centers, and parents are, again, empowered that they are their child's best resource. So empowering them to be able to advocate for and provide for their kids in their many areas of need. And it's would also, it raises the federal poverty level to 185%, which we've seen in several bills. So it would address a broader group. As written, it would reduce the wait list for Head Start, increase the ability for 1,000 kids to be able to get this service. It's got a pretty whopping fiscal note, but something would be great.
Thank you for that. Comments?
Go ahead, Drew.
Oh, I mean, again, I think this is another bill that, you know, on its face, again, I wish we had more specific data about access to Head Start directly related to the populations of people that we are, you know, trying to help in this process. Unfortunately, we don't. Again, I would strongly assume, although it's definitely an assumption, that by providing support for Head Start, that we would be helping those populations. It's like we talked about with some other bills yesterday. So again, you know, it's there's nothing. This bill is written in a race neutral way. But you know, it seems to me like this would be helpful. It does have a big fiscal note, so it's hard to sort of predict what the future holds for you know, for this bill. But you know, certainly I'm a big believer in Head Start and what it does for kids and what it does for families who are, you know, really at risk of having their kids left behind.
It occurs to me that this might really get at one of the assessment questions, number 8. How does the legislation create positive change in generational living conditions?
Mhm.
Because it really is working with the full family system in a way that, as Jay said, really respectful. I think this, even without specific language, might be one that we do want to prioritize.
Mhm. Yeah, I would agree. And, you know, I definitely do not want to add this population to the bill at risk, but we do know social determinants of health, race is a exasperating factor. And when you look at the language in the bill, you know, and the federal poverty level, all of this seems to be going in the right direction. That, you know, if we did not have this bill, how would these communities then access this very necessary first step? You know, is another way of thinking about it. And so, like the dental bill and like a couple of the other bills, if there was a way for us to package those bills and say, you know, we believe that this will have an impact, that there's no way for them not to have an impact. The amount of impact is really what's at question here. Not that they won't have they will have an impact, but without that data, we don't know without any specificity what that the value of that impact, the amount of impact. So I actually, you know, I like this bill. I'm going to vote that we keep it. I think though that it joins another group of bills that we should present to the full committee about the fact that we know that it will have an impact. Does it have the direct, explicit one we're looking for? We can't tell because of the lack of data. But I'm interested in how you all feel. I don't want to keep passing race neutral bills, you know that. But I also think that this will have an impact. I don't know how much, to what degree.
Well, and I think for this one, I think the data exists, just have to get it. Certainly there's federal data,
Yeah.
and I'd be happy to see if we can find state data. But I mean, it's just anecdotally, it certainly affects the population we're talking about. We just need to prove that.
I really like the idea of categorizing bills. You know, there's some that we know will really address racial inequity that we really want to prioritize. And then there's this whole other bucket which is really maybe looking more at issues of poverty or more marginalized groups for one reason or another, that we know they're good bills. We know that they will raise people up and that they'll address issues, but it's a slightly different focus. I think that that's a helpful way to look at these.
Let me
And
just,
what,
sorry. Let me just pile on here a little bit about this whole issue of the data, is that not only does the lack of data make it difficult for us to assess the bill and as it is in front of us, but it would be great if we already had this data so that we could assess whether passing the bill had a positive impact. It doesn't allow us to set a baseline, right? So again, I know I'm preaching to the choir here to a certain extent, but this is why, pushing for efforts within our government to take measurements now is important, because then when we pass bills or don't pass bills like this, it puts us in a better position to say, oh, look, we did this and this is what it did. And, even for a bill that is written in a race neutral kind of way. So sorry, that was a little soapbox.
No, I think that's really important. And Drew, as you have more experience in the appropriations process, I've never really used unallocated language, but would unallocated language for some of these issues where we don't want to change the fiscal note or slow the bill down necessarily with an amendment or a directive, but is it possible to do some sort of recommendation or almost like a whereas clause, but some sort of, language if once we direct the department to do something, there's a fiscal note, but is there a different way to make sure that this is explicit without a statutory direction? Because one of the things that's so frustrating is, whenever people talk data collection, it's like, oh, the Inform Me system is going to cost us $500,000 or 90 million.
And
right?
members.
Yeah, I think this issue has come up a little bit in the whole issue of the racial disparity issue around COVID, right?
Yep.
So the question is, maybe there's data we have that we just haven't figured out a way to unearth it and utilize. I think again, I don't want to take us too far off track here, but again, I think this calls for some kind of an ongoing assessment, specific to certain departments or certain issues, and publicly reported, so that we have that as an asset to us when we're making policy decisions.
Totally.
Yeah.
Drew, are you talking about some sort of global, I don't know if directive's the right word, but rather not bill by bill always, but?
Well, it would be some kind of assessment that would make data available to us bill by bill, right?
Yeah.
If we had information about the extent to which people in certain communities were able to get their kids into Head Start programs, we would have more targeted information that would help us assess a bill like this.
yeah, and we are
Going forward.
Yeah, and without getting too deep, because it's 3:15, but there is a process to do that through. There's two things. There's a process to do this through joint rule change, so that we have racial impact analysis statements on any bill that a legislator would ask for, providing there is data there to use, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that almost pales into comparison to the amount of funding you'd have to get good data. So this is what Senator Bells is talking about, the whole excuse around, well, we can't afford research and data collection. We're not going to we can't move these kinds of bills forward with a racial equity lens without it. And so at some point, there's going to have to be the political will and courage to invest in this kind of data collection. Because
Agreed.
we've got 10 bills here that we will not be able to say with certainty that they're going to have any impact, just because we're lacking that information, and that's not the way to go into the future. So we'll have to speak to that.
Agree.
Just wanted to ask either Genevieve or Vice Chief, do you have anything you wanted to add on this bill before we take a vote?
Yes, I did. I wanted to express my support of this bill, and I scored all of the opioid related bills high because I think they're relevant. Speaking from my own experience, my understanding is that Native folks are genetically predisposed to become alcoholic or some other substance addicted, and not just because of genetics, but I think there's some relevant environmental, racial disparity persuasions that kind of moves us in that direction, unfortunately. But I do want to support the bill.
I want to support the bill. I think there's been many compelling arguments in favor of keeping it on the table.
Okay, so we'll take a vote. We just put our thumbs up, Vice Chief, and I heard you say yes, Genevieve. Very cute.
It is technology.
So, and again, we'll move into the keep pile and then we'll figure out how to explain when we get there. So 1417 is now keep. How do you guys want to take, so 759, I don't know if anybody took a look at it. I'm just going to say it's my bill, so I'm not going to try to lobby in any which way. It's a funding bill for the Maine Human Rights Commission. And that's all I'm going to say.
I think it's really important. I don't think we need to spend any time on it. I mean,
Discrimination.
it's the
Commission.
entity that people go to when they have a discrimination complaint, and they need more resources, not fewer,
Absolutely.
and more teeth.
Yeah.
All those in favor? Yeah, okay, 759 goes over. 1376. So this bill is around a very interesting bill around the physical restraints and seclusion policies. This is to amend the rules. Does anyone know anything about it? First of all,
So I was assigned this bill, but unfortunately I've been on the boat the past 2 days and didn't have time to dig into it. So my apologies.
not to worry at all.
I looked at this bill pretty carefully during the first round, but haven't looked at it since. And I thought pretty strongly this bill should be on our list. And I'm looking at it. I actually think I looked at some of the testimony, and there was, I think there was actually some testimony in the committee about impacts, and I apologize for not being.
So this is
DOE. There was committee testimony about disparate impacts related to this bill, which really jumped out at me when I looked at this bill initially.
Yeah.
the ACLU did a report on this recently on the disparate use of restraint and seclusion and disparate impacts on children of color. I think this is a huge issue.
It is.
I would put this like super high up in the priority list.
Right.
Any other discussion? Ready to take a vote? Agree?
I just wanted to note it specifies specifically special ed, which I think is really important because I think that's also overrepresented by.
Absolutely. Oh,
Okay.
absolutely.
That's that yesterday. Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're in, all those in favor?
Yep.
It is unanimous. Thank you, Sundar.
One more thing, it requires that the data be reported by the categories, including race. So there's a data report requirement in the bill.
So I would agree that you might want to put a star on that one. You know, that is probably one of the more explicit impact bills that we have.
Mhm.
And we thank Representative Farnsworth for bringing that bill forward. 1453 is Representative Kateen's bill, and I'm going to give him the honors of talking about it. Dental health for Maine children and adults with low incomes, and maybe even give us just 2 minutes on the difference between this bill and your other bill. 1955, I think it is.
Yes. Okay. So this is a little confusing.
Yeah.
This is the bill. Let me just really quickly take a quick look and make sure I'm not
Yeah.
confused about which is which, okay? Because
No.
14, this is 1453, right?
Yeah, do you want a few seconds on that? Because 1492, which is gonna be pretty easy.
Yeah, let's do 1492 first.
Yeah. No, I mean, for folks listening or watching, I mean, this is a lot of bills. Even you have to just get refreshed and revisit bills. It's been a while. So let's just jump to 1492 real quick. And this is a bill sponsored by Penny Beebe Center. A lot of work has gone into this. I don't know if anyone can speak to it specifically. It's a decrim bill. And I would say it's been reworked so many times, but the essence is still there, which is to decriminalize drug use. And while I'm not sure of the direct impact for my community, I think Vice Chief Newell's done a good job of reminding us of the impact that it will have for tribal communities. And any bill that's going to start to decriminalize drug use is a good bill, and it has an impact for sure.
Yep.
So
It looked like it had, what stood out to me with trafficking was looked at specifically to prevent somebody being charged with trafficking when it isn't really trafficking.
yep.
So the lifelong impacts of this seem pretty important to me.
The ACLU's testimony was explicit about disparate impact, and Rachel, I know you're very familiar with this, but for folks who are new to this area, Michelle Alexander's written a book called The New Jim Crow, because when you look at the mass incarceration of people of color for drug-related crimes, it really is essentially stripping people of their fundamental constitutional rights. And I just talked to a young Black man yesterday, treated very differently than two white women and one young white man, all engaged in the same activity. And it happens every day in the state.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This. Vice Chief Newell, this is one of the bills that I think you've ranked pretty high around the impact, and we agree, I think.
I agree. I think the Penobscot tribe in particular have a drug court system, within their court system. And I think it's quite successful, or potentially, if it up till now, if it hasn't been, I think it has potential to help people to get into recovery, as opposed to jailing them and then returning them back to the addiction.
Yeah.
Drug trafficking is part of the drug culture, and a lot of times the motive isn't criminal motive. It's more of a to supply their habit. It's not an excuse, certainly, but it's an understanding.
It's interesting you mentioned drug court, because I've been a big proponent and worked on it through the opioid task force. And I won't say but, and there's the effort to prevent people from ever getting to the point where they are charged and need court. So I think we need both, but I think this bill will help reduce those who go through the criminal justice system unnecessarily.
Yeah, and the data is pretty alarming. I mean, we don't have to go into it now, but the Class A drug arrest differential between Black and white is pretty horrific in the state of Maine. Representative Gatine?
It seems to me that if we want to get to one of the fundamental problems or issues that are leading to the fundamental problems that we're trying to address here, this bill is incredibly important. So I would certainly put this very high on the list.
All those in favor? We'll just take a quick vote. Yay, Genevieve. Yep, we got it. Thank you. So 1492 moves over. And we'll go back to Representative Katine for 1453.
So this bill is kind of unusual. So yesterday we talked about the dental bill that we moved forward this session, which is now on the AFA table. And I think that's already on our list as a keeper, right? So
Thank
this is the bill that we brought forward last year that made it to the governor's desk. It had, through the various amendments, been transformed into basically a study. And the governor held on to the bill. And this is one of the bills that we recalled from the governor's desk when we came back into session. So this bill is currently with AFA also. Certainly, I think if we were going to put a stake in the ground, if we were going to take a stand with respect to a bill, it probably the one that we talked about yesterday is the one that we would primarily want to focus on. To be honest and frank, this other bill is still alive just in case we needed another vehicle to do something with. So I don't really plan to push very hard for 1453, although having 1453 around could be very helpful depending on what happens to the other bill. So that's kind of a long-winded explanation, but I don't really think we're going to want to have two dental bills on our list that'll look like they're competing with each other. And it's just a procedurally weird posture that this one is in.
So we will keep 1955 on the list. I think that's, and why don't we hope we don't need 1453.
But it's still alive. It'll still be alive, right? It'll still be
on our list. Yeah. So all those in favor to follow the sponsor's lead, and we won't include 1453 on our short list right now.
Okay. So we're okay.
Thank you, sponsor.
Thank you for not making me put a thumbs down on my own bill.
Yeah, that
would have felt very wrong to me.
No, real wrong. Wouldn't have to do that. So that completes our list of the not dones. It's 3:30. We moved 759, 1376, 1417, and 1492. With that, have about 12 bills now that we're keeping, which is a good number. Why don't we, any updates from anyone on either 1142 or 2153? And if there's not, we'll just keep going. EJ? Yep.
2145. That was a
2145. Oh, that's in the parking lot.
yeah, and I was just going to update. It was heard today in VLA, and
We can do that.
I did bring up the idea of an amendment, which the sponsor was fine with. At the same time, it needs a lot of work. It's a concept draft. For the sponsor's idea is we do these bits and pieces for veterans, come up in very different committees. We do here and there, and he was putting it all together in one. But it's very broad, and personally, some of it I like a whole lot, and some of it I don't. I was wondering if it should be made into a work group. It's called the Veterans Bill of Rights, but it's not there yet. It's not established as a Bill of Rights. It's a list of possibles. So we didn't go to work session on it. So it's
Sorry.
it's not dead, but if we were in like February,
Yeah.
I think I would say, let's turn this into a work group and come back with a recommendation. But what month is this? July.
Yeah. Any more discussion? We can take a vote on 2145 to not move it forward on our list. All those in favor of not moving forward? Okay. Moving right along.
Good idea, but not, this isn't it yet.
Yep, not yet. Let's head over to, again, so we've got 1142, which is Chloe Maxim's bill, and 21-3, which is Senator Carpenter's bill.
So I did talk to Chloe and she is open to an amendment.
Great.
She was like, what would that look like? And I have not yet responded.
Well-
I don't know. Do we have any staffing that could help with thinking through what an amendment would look like? Is there someone on staff that has the capacity to do that?
Yeah, I won't commit staff. I don't personally have, but I do think that we can get some help for some language outside of this subcommittee.
Okay.
Help Representative Maxon, and thank you for checking with her, Senator Bells.
Yep.
That's great news to hear. That's great news. It will strengthen the bill a lot.
I talked to Janet Stocco, who staffs VLA, about how to make it an amendment happen. And if the amendments would be similar, maybe they are, we could ask that, looking at racial disparity, I don't know if one language would meet all, but she's certainly willing to help.
Jay, that's really great to hear, because 1142 is in HHS, and right now, as you all know, HHS is still meeting, and so any pressure to take off of those animals would be great. I would say, yeah.
Okay.
Why don't you and I connect on that, if that's okay with Senator Bellows? We'll take over and see how we can get some language to Representative
Thank
Max.
you. And I did email Senator Carpenter and Stover's bill wasn't on our list, but I just gave her a heads up that I was curious about that. And I just haven't heard back from them yet, but that was only last night that I emailed. So.
Well, let's do one thing, which is move 1142 with an amendment, that's the caveat, into our keep group. Would everyone favor that? Trust us that we'll get the right language? Jay, you okay? Vice Chief, you okay with moving this bill? Okay, great. We will move that over to our keep. So for 2153, at this time, we haven't heard from the sponsor. We definitely wanted an amendment on that. I don't think we need to discuss it unless somebody else wants to right now. Go back to it, but I would say that it moves off our list. So all those in favor of moving, this is the accidental overdose death review panel. Without explicit language, we're gonna move it to the discard list. Is that correct? In favor? Thank you all. Now, what we have remaining are a couple of bills in the parking lot, and I'm wondering, as a process, if what we can do is consider, we can talk about them. We still have time, 3:35. So, but let's think about creating that group of bills that while we love them and we're supportive of them, they're not quite as explicit. They're more race neutral and universal. The universal application is not going to get us to a specific impact that we can name. So if that's clear, crystal clear, we'll start with LD 193. To fully fund and restore state municipal revenue sharing.
I think it goes in that list of bills that we like, but it's too neutral. Bills that we love. Are you listening, Representative Gatine? Bills that we absolutely really want to see passed. But
we want to see face, Representative Gatine. You need to shake your head. we want
to my desk for a couple minutes.
We want the head up and down. We want to see you.
Very important. Very important. Very important.
So all those in favor of moving 193 to our list of neutral bills that we like but are not explicit, and we will give voice to. Thank you. Yep. 469. If anyone knows anything about these bills, jump right in. This is to authorize General fund bond, so it's a bond bill for funding for upgrades of learning spaces and other projects funded by the school revolving renovation fund.
I think like revenue sharing, move to the list because it's race neutral at this point in time.
469, everyone agree? Looks like it's a Genevieve, yep, looks like that's unanimous. We move on to 535. Another bond bill, passenger rail infrastructure. And this is,
It's tangential, but it is public transportation.
I know.
That's what gets me. And, you know, maybe that's not strong enough, so it goes into our pile of good bills, but not specific enough. Definitely race neutral. The fact that it goes to Lewiston makes me like it more, but I'm happy to have it move off.
oh God.
I have the same struggle, but I just, low priority in our list would be the compromise, but I don't know.
If it were adequately funded so that the passenger fares were affordable, that would be one thing. The challenge that we've had with rail in Maine is that rail has not been accessible to people who are low income. It's been more of the, yeah, so I think that's one of the challenges. I do think the infrastructure is very important, and I think having a public rail system would ultimately increase equal access to job markets and mobility, but probably not immediately.
Well, yeah, and as we continue to debate this moving beyond this legislative session, we should be able to change the lens a little bit and to address the things that Senator Bellows and Representative Pebworth, because we want more public transportation and build the infrastructure. But maybe there's a aspirational piece that we can influence as it moves beyond this year. Does that make sense to folks? Drew? You okay?
Yeah, no, I mean, to me, I think, you know, to me, this belongs pretty squarely with issues like revenue sharing and building schools and you know, great. It would be wonderful if we could make more progress and focus the progress in certain ways.
So 535 moves to the list, is that right? Yep, good. Another bond bill, 859, fund equipment for career and technical education centers. Feels pretty familiar. I mean, our bond bills are,
Yep.
yeah, so.
To me, same thing. Yeah.
Yep, okay. Looks like everybody agrees. 1106, we have talked about this and haven't been able to make much decision. Improve the health and economic security of older residents. And this was a bill that Jay presented.
And I was supposed to follow up with some folks, and I have not gotten feedback yet. So, I mean, if we could resolve this one by email, I think I have a feeling it's not going to be on our keeper list. I think we voiced strong support for the direct care workforce bill, you know, and I would think that the way this other bill is structured, it's probably not as directly impactful.
Yeah, it's hard to say that I agree, but I do.
A great bill. It would help older people, but I just don't think it's gonna. Anyway, just give me a little bit of time to try to.
All right, so
back.
are you okay with putting it on the list then for the potentially it will do good, but we don't see the direct now? Okay, so we'll put 1106 with our bond bills.
Mm-hmm.
We're now moving to 1178. Oh, Jay, are you okay with that?
Yeah, the thing that was sticking with me was how this might be impactful for Indigenous populations, and more so than others. But I think I think among them, there should be what you just said, Rachel, like Rachel said.
Am I remembering that this bill is a pilot program?
No, it would remove,
It's the asset test bill.
yeah, it would take away the asset test and go by
We need
income.
more data. Need more
We
data.
should what?
That seems like one of those areas where we need more information, more data.
I just want to make sure you're okay with that, Jay. It's just gonna go with the grouping of other bills that we support, but we need more information on. And if Representative Katine is able to get some more information by the time we vote, then we'll take
We
it
try to
into
reconsider.
by email. Okay. So we now move on to 1178, which was the intellectual disabilities waiver. Yeah, to address the needs of children with intellectual disabilities and autism spectrum disorder. This is the Representative Stover bill that Senator Bellows was, I think, referencing. So no information yet. Do you want to keep it? And if we put her on that list?
Yeah, with revenue sharing, because I do think there might be a case to be made, but it's not, it's race neutral as drafted.
And if you hear, we'll do the same kind of consideration. If you hear from her by the time we vote, let us know now, and it might shift things. For now, it's on the list of possibilities. So we go into 1689, and this one, Vice Chief Newell, is around addressing the opiate crisis through evidence-based public health policy that I think that you would like to see kept on our list. This opioid crisis bill.
This is Senator Sanborn's bill that was originally had a number of different policy areas, but I think it's been amended now to basically provide funding for needle exchange. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep. Allocation of funds appropriated for hypodermic apparatus exchange programs, needle exchange programs.
I remain supportive of the bill, but I don't have any specific data to support, to be of any influence. I'm sorry.
The other issue that was raised was it doesn't address the criminal aspect, which I would love to see happen. But this isn't, I don't think there's time to make that happen now.
But didn't we discuss yesterday that the primary vehicle for making changes in criminal law in terms of what we're working on is 1492?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
think we need this.
I'm inclined to keep it if, based on what Vice Chief Newell has stated as really important to his community. So I know the bill should probably have some different, some more direct language, but I think we can keep it on the list for now and see where it shakes out in the process for priority setting with the permanent commission.
And I'm so glad you said what you just said, Rachel, because I had an awesome recovery house bill that passed and was funded. And I was very alarmed to find that the allocation of funding in the initial round only went to white owned and operated organizations. So one of the real challenges with some of the programs that we set up is if we pass it thinking there's going to be an impact on the communities we serve, and then the distribution of the allocation goes only to white owned and operated organizations, then it's not going to address the disparities.
And unfortunately, that happens over and over and over and over and over again. And commentary, until we invest in the infrastructure of these other communities and stand them up as full partners, we're not going to get there. It just does not move the needle. The needle. Yeah. So what would you like to do with 1689? Is it, I mean, it does need more explicit language.
I think that goes on our keep list. I mean,
Okay.
that's what I would suggest, Representative.
Okay. All those in favor of putting it on the keep list?
So I'm in this sort of category because I mean, yes, given what Vice Chief Newell has said, yes, but I just want to make sure there's a way to communicate to the department that should it be funded, that it be distributed in a different way than some of the prior funding.
I mean, this is a bill that will need to move through the appropriations table, right?
Yep.
And it's probably already on. I should know, but I don't. You know, it might already be on the appropriations table. So again, this is a bill where we could talk about the viability of putting an amendment on it that would,
Yep.
you know, provide focus or requirements, you know, to strengthen the bill.
Great.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's the movement right there. Yeah, thank you, Representative
Yeah.
Dean.
Of course.
We have to remember, we're at the beginning of this process, right? The more that we can make happen this session, the better. But
Yeah.
this is the beginning, not the end by any means.
Totally.
Yeah, yes, and a good beginning it is. That completes all of the bills that we have, and it's 3:48.
Wow, we're the best committee ever.
It is the best committee ever and great leadership. Go Vice Chief Newell and Representative Talbot
No
Ross.
meeting I ever run would ever be done 12 minutes early, by the way.
And the good news is that we were able to move, I'll say the bill numbers if you're keeping track, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more bills onto our list, so we have a total of 14. We moved 759, we moved 1142, 1376, 1417, 1492, and 1689. So I think, you know, from a list of 65 bills, we have 14. It means we did our job. We do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on in this kind of category of their bond bills, all but one. 193, 469, 535, 859, and 1106, and 1178. So those are kind of in the category of, you know, next time we write a bond bills, we need to be more explicit about where some of this attention and money and financial and human resources need to go. So is everyone, anything that folks want to say? We could talk a little bit about the process tomorrow.
Is there a time scheduled tomorrow, Representative? I don't have anything on my.
Yeah, it is, and I'll have that resent to the whole team. It's 11:30 to 1.
Okay.
And so we have 2 meetings this week, one on Wednesday, one on Friday. They're to do the same thing. They're for subcommittees to present their findings, their list. Each subcommittee gets 20 minutes. So tomorrow it is subcommittees 1, 2, and 3. We're subcommittee 1. So we get 20 minutes. And then on Friday, it'll be the subcommittee 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Great.
And that is a chance to present the bills. What will happen while you're seeing the presentation, every member is going to tonight, you're going to get an email with the priority setting tool that as you're listening to bills, you can fill out, you can score in real time. So you don't have to remember all these bills and then wait. And then we're trying to be efficient with your time. We're also trying to capture in the moment what you're thinking about the bill and be able to ask any questions. We have to tabulate all of that information fairly quickly. So some of it is just trying to get a tabulation in place and to get that back to everyone. And this next phase of the process, legislators can actually opt out. If you've said, I've enjoyed it and I'm going to opt out of this process now, that's perfectly fine. You could opt out at any time, actually, but we just want to give voice to the fact that we know you've given a lot of time. But if you want to opt out this part of the process, you can do so. Otherwise, you're going to get that document tonight. You'll get the Zoom again, you'll get the time, yeah, we'll bring forth our recommendations. What I'd like to suggest is if folks on the committee, other than the vice chief and I, would like to lead our presentation, it'd be great to get other voices into the meeting. Vice chief and I have plenty of opportunities. So if anyone would like to take, we have 14 bills, and then we have those 6 in the kind of parking lot.
So it's essentially a minute a bill, and a minute or 2 in the parking lot. And I'm happy to help out in whatever way works and is efficient.
Thank you, sir.
I nominate Representative Pebworth.
So why don't we do this? We can, again, you're going to get this information. You'll get our assessment, an updated assessment. We'll populate that, and then you'll get the form that you need to use for all of the bills, including ours. You'll fill another form out for our bills. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, we can email tonight. If any new information comes in on any of the other bills, just get it to us by email. Otherwise, we are the first committee to present tomorrow at 11:30. And I may contact 1 or 2 of you to just take 2 or 3 of these bills, just so it's a team effort.
Mm-hmm.
We can model what the team effort looks like.
That's great.
Vice Chief, do you have anything else? It looks like we are going to end our meeting 5 minutes early.
Well, I'm good, thank you.
Very good.
Anyone else? Well, good. It's a great team. It's been wonderful to work with each of you in this process, and I've learned a lot from each of you during this process. So it's been wonderful. And we'll be on tomorrow at 11:30.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
everybody.
Everybody.
Good
See
to
ya.
see you all. Stay
Bye.
cool.